All right, so what is the application committee looking for? Well, admissions is really, when they're evaluating personal statements, they're looking for a couple of things. They're looking for intellectual aptitude. Is this the kind of person that is looking at situations, measuring what's going on, taking in information, and making the best decisions possible? So they can kind of pull that out of really good stories. So that's something important they're looking for. They're looking for specific skills relevant to graduate school. So, for law school, are you able to, make an argument, persuasive argument? For business school, are you able to crank through analytical problems and challenges? Whatever the graduate school is that you're applying for, they're going to be looking for those specific skills, in your personal statement that you may have demonstrated in the past. Does the applicant demonstrate moral character, especially for law school? I want to say not for business school, because I think business schools more and more are looking for that moral character. All schools are looking for that moral character. Really, have you been able to kind of demonstrate that? Maybe you had a challenge in the past, and you were able to kind of meet that challenge, even if it was kind of a tough situation, one that maybe have challenged your character. That could be something that you talk about specifically in your personal statement. And then will you be successful? So do you exhibit some of those traits that we talked about that will make you a successful candidate in graduate school? So maybe someone who had the odds stacked against them, they fought through it, they demonstrated that they were able to fight through it, and they are even better coming out of it. In my kind of quote unquote personal statement, I've talked about my battle with cancer. So that's who I am. That really made me the kind of person that I am today. And that was really important for me, right? To demonstrate, not just because I thought it would be, oh, wow, this guy's accomplished something that many who had this didn't accomplish, because I think a lot of that was just being in favorable circumstances. But that I was able to kind of push through it and still go to school and still accomplish the things that I wanted to accomplish. I didn't let that be something that held me back. So I think being able to demonstrate those kinds of skills, that you can fight through things, that you can persevere, is really important to showing potential success in graduate school. And also contribution. So this is a really important one, because all schools are looking for contributors to their programs, right? So not just people who can be accomplished on their own rights, but people who look outside of themselves and look to do things in the community, look to give back in general. And so your overall job is to craft this application that screams yes to each question. Yes, I have make a contribution to others. Yes, I'll be able to be successful in graduate school. Yes, I have character. I do have the skills. So when you're kind of going through a personal statement, you may not have all of these kind of nailed, but you should have at least a couple of them demonstrated in your personal statement. So when you're outlining your personal statement, use this as a guide.
One of the tricky things about writing an effective essay or personal statement is you want to show passion and interest, but how do you balance that, with some of the other traits and backgrounds, with facts, and not look too over the top? Well, one of the first things to do there in terms of effectively demonstrating passion is to show it and not tell it, right? There are a million ways to tell someone that you're inquisitive, or you're an analytical person, or whatever the case may be, whatever the character trait is. But there are only a few ways for you to actually show it and demonstrate it through your stories, that if you've been following the curriculum here, you've developed your brand, you have stories that are supportive of your brand character traits. So one of the first things to do is just show it. Talk about it in the context of what you've actually done, as opposed to saying, you know what, I'm really this, I'm really that. Trust me. Another thing that goes along those same lines is to provide significant detail, and provide it detail from different angles. So if you want to talk about how you're a very generous person, or how you love to give back, instead of saying I love to give back, talk about how you're very involved as a leader in a volunteer club, and you've made this kind of impact. And also talk about how you've taken over, or you're leading the team at work to focus on social justice, in the workplace. So those are two ways where you're showing your passion for a particular thing without saying, over and over, I'm really passionate about X, Y, and Z. So make sure you show, don't tell, and make sure you're providing as much detail from different perspectives as possible. And that's the way to effectively demonstrate personal passion. So there is some natural tension between making sure that you're incorporating your own brand character traits in your essays and making sure that you are really speaking to the values of a particular program. And there's some nuances there that we'll talk a little bit about here. You want to be authentic, and you want to be true to yourself and really speak to selling your brand. But you also want to, whenever possible, incorporate some of those key areas that the schools are looking for without it looking forced. So how do you do that? Well, first of all, the number one priority in this case is be true to your brand, right? Let's say a school is all about teamwork, and a school is all about leadership, and a school is all about collaboration. Teamwork, leadership, collaboration. Well, hopefully right there you have some character trait that talks about team or collaboration, right? Because that is a theme that is clearly important. So let's make sure we get that in there at some point. Maybe you don't have a ton of leadership traits, but you really want to talk about some other areas that you think are strength of yours. So you'll incorporate the collaboration piece. You'll incorporate some piece on, being very analytic, being very entrepreneurial, which by nature demonstrates leadership. But you don't necessarily pull in something that, really, really speaks to leadership, which is one of the key areas of focus for the school. That's okay. Right? You've gotten, kind of at least with the collaboration and the teamwork piece, you've really kind of delivered on that piece with a key character trait where you were able to speak to that. If you don't necessarily hit the leadership trait that they're looking at directly, on the first time, that's okay. Maybe there's some ways to talk about it in the interview. But you really want to be true to yourself and make sure you're telling the best story you can about your character traits and your particular stories that you want to bring up in your brand, but also to the extent that you can incorporating things that matter for the school. But don't worry if you don't get them all in. It's most important to be true to your own brand, and then obviously tie in to the extent that you can, whatever is important to the school in terms of fit. They're not looking for a one-size-fits-all candidate, but they are looking for certain commonalities that they think will make a good fit for the school.
Admit me, never apply alone.